Hello everyone and welcome to the first round of the new tournament, the 2025 Minnesota Open. This is the biggest tournament of the year in the state of Minnesota in the United States. And I want to share with you, we're going to go right into the analysis area here. So I'm coming to this tournament with a rating of 1675 because for my previous tournament, I won 26 points. But my rating did not update in the pairing papers. So my rating was still showing as how I started last tournament, so 1649. But just for you guys to know, it's 1675. It should have been 1675 when I started this tournament. So I had the opportunity to play against the strongest players in Minnesota. And with a rating of 1649 or 75, I'm still not there with 1700, right? So I could have played in the section under 1700 section. And also I could have played in the under 2000 section. But I decided to play in the premier section, which is the open section. And that's the one that holds a lot of strong players. And I just wanted to play there to play against strong opponents. I want to get better. I could have played in the lower sections or the ones that I belong for prize money, right? I could have played for prize money. The prize money was pretty good actually, like $700. It was close to $1,000 for the first places. But my goal is a long-term goal, right? I want to get the national master title, so I want to really play against strong opponents. So that's what I decided to do. I was a little bit hesitant about it, but I decided to do it like this. So this is the first round in the premier section. This was on a Saturday, and the first two rounds started with 16 minutes each person with 5-second delay. The whole point of that is to catch up to the 3-day event. I registered for the 2-day event, which is a Saturday and a Sunday. But the 3-day tournament, was from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which means that you play 2 games per day with a time control of 90 minutes each person with 30-second increment. The whole point of the 2-day event is to play 4 games the first day and then 2 games on the next day. But the first 2 rounds, you play a faster time control so that you can catch up with the 3-day event group. Okay, so the first 2 rounds, this run is a 60-minute each person with 5-second delay. And I have the opportunity to play against a national master. So my opponent is a national master with a rating of over 2200 in Canada. But in the United States, he has a rating of 2094. Still a national master. So let's just get right into it, okay? And I play the white pieces. And by the way, for you guys to know, I was the second lowest rated player in the section. There were 2 international masters with a rating of over 2500. The next one was a over 2300 rated player, and then it was 2200s, 2000s. It was crazy. It was insane. I was the second lowest rated player in the group. So everybody, thought that they were gonna get 3 points from me, but I can play some chess sometimes, So for this tournament, I decided to play with knight f3. Knight f3, it's a very flexible move just because it gives me the opportunity to go for a Queen's Gambit idea, or maybe for a Catalan. I can go for a color system, or I can just go play the London. So it's very nice, but at the same time, you kind of have to go with whatever your opponent does, right? So you cannot just always play the same idea. I mean, unless you play the London system, right? So I started with knight f3 to give me some options. I want to not go into right into theory sometimes. And if I have the opportunity to play the London, I'll try to play it. So my opponent goes with c5. Here the best response is probably like e4, or maybe just go for symmetrical with e4 or c4. I decided to go with this idea of e3, which now it can turn into a color system. Color system is a less good version of the London because you still go with d4, e3, but your bishop is stuck behind your pawn. And I am okay with it because my dad loves to play this opening. So I said, you know what? I know some ideas on this opening, because if I go into this opening, I can try to go for the Socrates variation of the Collie system, which is with b3 and fianchetto your bishop here. So my opponent goes with d5 and I go with d4. And by the way, for this one, my opponent was taking a lot of time to thinking about each move. And because we have a 5-second delay, 60 minutes with 5-second delay, it doesn't mean that your added time, after your 5-second timer runs out, then your clock starts bleeding down or going down, right? So you're not added time for this time control. I just developed my bishop to e2, and I just want to get castle as soon as I can. That's my whole point. My opponent just develops, and I'm trying not to capture this pawn to help my opponent develop, right? So here I want to make him waste time. And if he captures, he's just helping me develop. Maybe I can just capture with the pawn and he opens my bishop up. I think that's the reason why my opponent didn't capture, because it really helps me and I can just always attack him or pin him with my bishop, right? So I just go with c3. My opponent brings the bishop to d6 and I just capture the pawn now. And the whole point of this is that now I'm saying you wasted time with your bishop. I did something while you move your bishop twice. Just like wasting their time a little bit. I develop my knight, my opponent castles, and the position here is, as you can see, is plus 0.2, plus 0.1 something, right? So it's pretty drawish. It's not super imbalanced, really. Although I have 3 pawns here on the queen side, my opponent has 2 pawns, but he has 2 central pawns, right? So it's kind of hard to break through unless I go with some ideas like c4, which actually is the second best move. I didn't play that. I just developed my rook, because at one point maybe I have ideas of moving my bishop and then going for e4 ideas. But here my opponent goes with a6, which gives me an idea of going b5 and maybe just fianchetto the bishop here on b7. I just play, you know, like a prophylactic move to prevent the knight jumps and always have a little window for my king to escape in the end so I don't get backrank checkmated. And my opponent goes for e5. So that's a very nice move. Just going for the center, gaining a lot of space. And here I just go for b4. Now creating some sort of imbalance, which an imbalance usually benefits the stronger player. But here I'm trying to play some good chess, whatever I can do to win or maybe get a draw against the strong opponents, right? So my opponent goes back. And here the idea is that I'm already seeing that my opponent wants to get a battery going, and with this e4 push. So I'm already seeing that this could be a plan for him, right? With an e push, and then my knight, if I ever move it, my opponent can just infiltrate and give me a checkmate pretty soon. So now I go for this idea of b5. And b5, in my head, it made sense because my opponent has connected pawns. I guess my pawns are connected, so I don't really have to go for that idea. Maybe if anything, I can go for this, a4. a4 is actually the second best move. But b5, I really liked it because it really creates a very nice weakness for him. And I have my last square bishop. I can always go a4. I also have a weakness, which I can like use to go with c4 and maybe break these pawns in the middle, right? So still need some plans. The idea of queen c7 here definitely makes me think, okay, he wants to bring the bishop here and then go for the e4 push, which is a nice little idea, because if I move my knight again, checkmate, or checkmate into, right? So I bring my knight to h2 with the idea of bringing it to f1. I don't really want to move my d knight, although maybe that was probably fine. But I feel like this knight has nice jumps, so maybe moving that one wouldn't be the best. So the queen goes there to b5. Sorry, to a5. And here we have one move, right? So we need to think our opponent, or the opponent here, is attacking the bishop, but also is attacking the pawn here. on c3, right? So how can we defend two pieces at once with one move or one piece? It would be this move, queen b3. Queen b3 defends the bishop and defends the pawn. But we need to already start thinking what our next response will be to the move that is coming. And one of the best moves for my opponent is actually the second best move. And I saw that was coming, especially because it comes with tempo, right? So it is bishop e6. Now, take your time. We have a few responses. We have a few moves. It's not that we have only one move to play and have a nice, keep the advantage, similar. But I want you to, for this video, I will be pausing at certain times for you to also find the best ideas or maybe some different options. And it'd be nice for you to type in the comment section below, because I'll be reviewing those responses. So in this position, let's treat it as a chess exercise. Why to move? And then there's no one good response. There are different responses and different ideas can work. So what is one of the moves that you see in this position for the white pieces? So why to move? Okay, you can pause the video, but I'll proceed with the explanation. So here, actually the best move, I didn't play the best move, I played the second best move, but the best move is to play c4. c4 already, because the knight's still defended by the knight, you're attacking this pawn, and if your opponent captures here, you can just capture with the bishop, right? If your opponent doesn't capture, if they do something like this, that's not a good move, because you can just capture this, and if takes, you come in with check. So they just lose a pawn. And your pieces are still defended. You can have ideas of maybe bishop here, go for some attacks or development for your pieces, right? So that's the best move. I didn't play the best move, but my idea was, okay, d4 is coming. What can I do about it? In the moment, I said, you know what? I don't have to move my queen, because if I move my queen anywhere, my bishop is lost, right? So sometimes we're too afraid of moving our queen. I guess an idea would be to move it to b1, queen b1, but queen b1, I don't think it's a good move. Already gives a lot of advantage to the black pieces, especially because I can just capture this pawn here on c3, right? So here, the move that I played was bishop b2. Bishop b2, it's the second best move, and my plan was, if my opponent has an idea of putting this pawn here, I can just bring my bishop to c4. Bishop c4, if, for example, my opponent takes here on c3, now I am capturing this pawn with tempo on the queen. And my bishops are very open, so that's very nice. The queen moves anywhere, I can just win this bishop. If the queen moves here, for example, now I still win this bishop and I win the pawn with check, right? So let's see, let's go back here. So after this one, my opponent went with rook there, because he knew that I either had the option of pushing the pawn forward or just bringing the bishop. I think bringing the bishop was my main idea. Okay, let's proceed. I go with a4. a4, so I don't have to stress out much about the bishop. If the knight ever goes there, I can just capture this rook, right? My opponent brings the queen back. I'm not sure why he brought the queen back, because the knight's still here, but maybe his plan was to bring the knight, develop the knight there, and maybe move it here too. Maybe, not sure. Here, I just developed my rook to c2 to have some extra vision on the queen. And then the d4 push happens. Now, we need to pause the video again and try to find the best continuation or the best continuations for the white pieces. In this case, we have only one move to keep the draw advantage or evaluation, to keep the zeros. If we play any other move, it will be either minus 0.2, minus 0.6. So minus 0.2 is actually not too bad. So if you find that move, it's not too bad. It's actually pretty fine. But let's try to find this move that keeps everything at zeros. Okay, so you can pause the video. I will proceed now. So the move that I played here is queen c2. queen c2, and you may be thinking here, maybe there's an idea like bishop here, but now they have knight a5, attacking the queen and the bishop, and attacking the bishop 3 times. So here you lose a piece, because the bishop, this square on c4 is only defended by 2 pieces right now. So if I bring the queen here, now they can just capture this with a knight. And then here I'm just losing a whole piece. So we need to be careful still. So after d4, again, I played this move. Queen here, my opponent captures, and here I capture. The best move is to capture with a knight, but I was just afraid that after this, then there's like e4, and now I have to bring my knight back, although, okay, now, ooh, okay, I didn't see this. I guess I was thinking that I had to bring the same knight, but I can just bring the other knight. And oh, this is nice. This is better. I like this a lot more. I like this a lot. Yeah, I thought that I had to bring my same knight back. I'm not sure why. Anyway, so here I capture with the pawn. So now here we're creating a huge imbalance where someone is gonna win, the other person is gonna lose for sure. Because I have here 3 isolated pawns. My opponent only has 1 isolated pawn, right? But I'm really countering my opponent's battery with 1 piece, with the knight. And it's very hard to get rid of this knight, especially because I still have the bishops and I still have the other knight defending this knight. Okay. My opponent was with bishop a7, attacking the pawn, obviously. And here I go with knight f3. At this time, I noticed that, actually throughout the game, I was keeping an advantage on the clock of 11 minutes. So I was ahead on time against my opponent, and around this time, I don't remember if it was around this time or so, my opponent was getting very low on the clock. He was getting very low on the clock. So I was noticing that, and remember that we're not added time. We don't have time added. We don't have increment for this one because we're trying to catch up to the 3-day group, which means that his time is not coming back. He cannot gain more time, right? It's delay, 5-second delay. So I'm noticing that. I'm not really playing totally on that, but a little bit. So my idea, my plan changed in the middle game, right? In the early middle game or so, because I knew that my opponent was taking a lot of time to think. So my idea was not to trade pieces. If I trade pieces, I will make things simple for my opponent. So I don't want to do that, right? I want to complicate the position. I want to complicate it enough for my opponent to have to take some time to think. So that was my goal as well. So here, after knight f3, my opponent creates a battery because the plan is if he doesn't do anything here, I can just capture this knight. My opponent, if he captures with the queen, I was thinking about just capturing this on e5. But apparently there's queen c8. And I guess there are some ideas of a sacrifice, but I can just bring the knight back to f3. And now I am up a pawn, and I can try to defend, like, I'm up a pawn here, so I don't think it's too bad. I guess there's bishop c4. I don't know. There's some ideas, maybe. But I will be fine with this because my opponent is getting down on the clock, right? So he still is trying to play precise, but it's taking a lot of time to achieve that. The accuracy. Rook c8. And now I take the knight on c6. My plan is if my opponent captures this bishop, this pawn drops. If he captures it with the queen. So my opponent created a battery there on c8 or in the c file, but has to capture with the pawn, which negates the whole point of bringing the rook to c8. And he captures it with a pawn, so I don't capture this pawn on e5 for free. Here, I just push c4. c4 to open up my bishop. And my opponent played this move, e4. So e4, it's a nice move, and I didn't even think, to be honest, I didn't even think about bringing the knight to d4, which actually is the best move. If I bring the knight to d4, I'm doing really well. And I should have done it. I should have done that, to be honest. I didn't play it there, and we can analyze the position here. The knight doesn't have like good jumps. And if you trade this bishop, I can just take it back with the bishop, and I have a very nice bishop and all good pawns. I have a passed pawn here on the A file. So the position is really, really nice, you know? After something like this, I think I can just capture here on f6, double my opponent's pawns. The position just plays itself. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice position. I really like this one. But that didn't happen. And for some reason I thought, okay, first of all, I should have found that move. But I was trying to complicate the position a lot more. Because every time my opponent would be about to, like, he was about to grab a piece or something. Every time he would be about to like grab a piece, he would put his hand out to grab the piece, but then he would stop himself and start thinking for a couple minutes or so. And then his clock is just running down, right? So at this point, I played a kind of sus move, but it's fine. Knight g5, which complicates the position even more because now I'm attacking this pawn on e4, attacking the bishop. So my opponent has to move the bishop to defend the pawn, and he does. He goes bishop f5. And now here I can just capture the knight. Here I think I can just capture this knight. But it's not easy. It's not easy to calculate this one because there's this line where the best move is to capture this knight. But then you're saying, okay, this knight is hanging and it doesn't have any good squares, right? But then you have this move, knight f3, or you can also, no, yeah, I think this is the only move you have to find, which is kind of nuts. Knight f3, because now if they capture here, you can capture on f5. If they'll capture here on g2, you just capture this pawn with the king. And that's crazy, man. What happens if they capture here on... What if they capture here? Knight takes e3. But the king is very open, though. Rook g1. And you're going to go for... Like, who's attacking who here? Wow. Okay, that is crazy. That is crazy. Anyway, so I go queen f2. And here my opponent doesn't have much time on the clock. I remember I had about 15 minutes or something. And my opponent has like 1 minute, or actually less than a minute. I think he had like only a few seconds left. I think he was just playing on the delay. So here he plays this move quite fast, but he only has a few seconds on the clock. I capture the knight, which is not the best move. Because after this, and I take, my knight is trapped. But none of us notices it. Especially because my opponent is looking at the clock the whole time. And every time he's pulling his eyes out of the clock, he takes a lot of time to think, despite seeing the clock that he has not much time. So here the best move for my opponent is just h6 and my knight's trapped. But he's freaked out at the position that his focus right now is like, I'm targeting the f7 square, and he has no time on the clock. He has a few seconds left or so. My opponent plays a random move. I don't remember exactly this like end of the position because I wasn't really taking notes, or maybe like the notes that I was taking was not the best, or maybe this is actually what happened, but I don't know if the rook was here or somehow the rook was here on the second rank. I don't remember. But because my opponent stopped taking notes, he had no time on the clock. So here I played c5. I think I played c5. I don't think I played h4, which is actually the best move. But I think I played c5 to block the bishop because it's still defended by the rook. And my opponent plays, I think, a move like rook d8 because he has a plan of going to d5 and then going to f5. Here I go king h1. Okay. At this time, my opponent has 4 seconds on the clock. And there's a 5-second delay, right? So it would be like 9 seconds, I guess. So I see that my opponent has the 4 seconds on the clock. And I don't pay attention to the delay, the 5-second delay. And in my head, I started counting I look at the clock and I start looking at the board, and in my head I'm counting down 4, 3, 2, 1. I look at the clock, so my opponent grabs the piece, the rook. He's grabbing the rook, and he's about to place it on d5. He places it on d5, and we both look at the clock, and it's 0. So my opponent in this moment he flagged, and I won against the national master. I won on time. This one I won on time. So here the position is not too bad because I have h4, and if the rook goes to f5, I was thinking about maybe like queen d6 or something, because if it takes, now my pawn is attacking the rook. So now this is a very nice position, but my opponent has no time on the clock to think, and in this type of games that counts as well, you know, that counts as well. So I'm glad we got to win against a national master round 1, which, to be honest, you need to stick around for this tournament. It's a 6-round event, which you will really like. So this is round 1. We got the W. We got the win against a national master, almost 2100 rated player. Although he's stronger in Canada. But that's it. Here's a little reflection after the round at the tournament event. So I hope you like it. Guys, round 1 just finished. Let me go outside. Round 1 just finished, guys. Dude. We did it, man. We did it, dude. We got a win against a 2094 rated opponent. And I think like that's not even considering that the ratings have not updated yet, because my rating is still showing us 1649, the same as my last tournament. Although on the website for US chess, it shows us 1670 something. I don't remember what, but what do you guys think? Man, I put so much pressure. Man. I felt like I didn't want to simplify the position because my opponent's time was running out. He was running low. My second to last move, I saw that he had 4 seconds on the clock and we have 5-second delay. And then when I pressed the clock, he was about to make a move, but I don't think he was expecting my 9 move. I don't know, king h1, I think. So he was gonna make a move, and then he stopped himself to think. And in my head, I was counting 1, 2, 3, or 4, 3, 2, 1. Then my opponent presses the clock, and I looked, and it's 0s. So we win on time. We had a crushing position, probably. It was not clear because after my opponent's move, what was it, rook d5 or something? He was gonna bring the rook. He was gonna bring the rook to attack my queen, right? Because he's defended by the bishop. And he mentioned that afterwards, but it happens, man. We can do it, man. We can do it, guys. We're on our way to the title of National Master, and we started the tournament really well by defeating a 2100 rated opponent. Let's go.